Rain washed the city like a half-hearted apology, streaking neon across the cracked concrete and turning every reflection into a trembling ghost. Elias Kane hunched beneath the overhang of a derelict metro entrance, his coat so threadbare that the wind cut through it like memory. Around him, the city pulsed with electric veins, drones humming between hollow billboards, lights flickering over graffiti that had outlived the governments who banned it. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, climbing and falling like an exhausted heartbeat. Elias rubbed his hands together for warmth, then cupped them around the small flame of a scavenged lighter. Its light flickered against his hollow cheeks, tracing the faint scar that ran from his temple to his jawline, a relic from the war no one remembered fighting. The world had moved on without him. Cities had risen skyward, stitched together by steel and plasma conduits, while men like him sank into the underbelly, the forgotten strata beneath the glamour. He watched the shimmer of an orbital ad reflected in a puddle, Mars colonies, a new life awaits. The words distorted, rippling across the surface like a cruel joke. Elias had once dreamed of the stars too. Now, he'd settle for a warm meal and a place where the rain didn't find him. The ground shuddered. At first, he thought it was the subway, a passing freight line shaking the foundations, but then the sound followed, deep and guttural, not mechanical but alive. The air thickened with static. Every electronic billboard around him flickered, spitting sparks and distorted images. He glanced upward. The clouds churned unnaturally, glowing from within as if lightning were trapped beneath their skin. And then, cutting through the low rumble of thunder, came a streak of blinding silver. The object tore across the skyline, too controlled for debris, too erratic for a ship. It screamed overhead, trailing a wake of blue fire before vanishing beyond the spires. Seconds later, the explosion came, a distant, hollow roar that rattled the glass above him and sent flocks of mechanical birds scattering into the haze. Curiosity burned through the numbness that usually ruled him. He hesitated only a moment before moving, drawn toward the glow on the horizon. His boots splashed through puddles, down deserted alleys that smelled of rust and old circuitry. The further he went, the stranger the air became, tinged with the scent of ozone and something metallic, almost sweet. He reached the outskirts of the industrial quarter, where abandoned factories loomed like sleeping beasts. A faint light pulsed between them, rhythmic and wrong. Elias ducked under a collapsed fence, his breath visible in the cold air. As he neared the source, he saw it, a crater carved into the street, edges fused into glass, smoke curling like fingers toward the sky. At its center lay something smooth and black, half buried, a vessel, no larger than a hover car, its surface alive with shifting patterns of light. Then it moved. A panel hissed open, releasing a rush of vapor that smelled faintly of copper. From within, a figure stumbled out, collapsing onto the scorched ground. Elias froze. The being, it couldn't be human. Its form was humanoid, yes, but too tall, too slender, its skin a muted silver that refracted the rain like liquid glass. Where eyes should have been, faint orbs glowed beneath a translucent membrane. Its chest rose and fell erratically, as though every breath was a battle. Elias took a step forward. The creature turned its head weakly, its gaze locking onto him. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then, from the shadows around the crater, voices broke out, low, hungry laughter. Scavengers. They emerged from the darkness, 4 of them, their clothes patched with cyberweave and their eyes shining with greed. Looks like payday came early, one said, hefting a shock baton. Another grinned, a gold implant glinting where his teeth should be. Alien tech, boys. We'll be kings tonight. Elias knew what they were capable of. He'd fought beside men like them once, and seen what desperation made them do. He glanced at the alien, who struggled to rise, its hand reaching weakly toward him, fingers trembling as though trying to speak. Something inside Elias snapped. He didn't think. He just moved. He grabbed the nearest length of pipe from the rubble and stepped between the scavengers and the fallen being. Walk away, he said, voice low, steady, though his heart thundered. The leader smirked. Old man, you must have hit your head. That thing's worth more than you'll make in 10 lifetimes. Then you'd better hope I don't live that long. The first swing came fast, a baton arcing toward his ribs, but Elias ducked, his reflexes honed by years of surviving worse. The pipe connected with a crack, sending the attacker sprawling. Another lunged, knife flashing under the rain, slicing through Elias's sleeve. Pain bloomed down his arm, but he didn't stop. He fought like a man who had nothing left to lose, every blow driven by some buried fury against the world that had forgotten him. When the last scavenger fled into the shadows, Elias stood panting, blood mixing with the rain. The alien lay still, its faint glow dimming. Elias dropped the pipe and knelt beside it. "Hey," he murmured, not knowing if it could understand him. "You're safe now. You're, all right." The alien's hand twitched, brushing his wrist. A surge of warmth flooded through him, not painful but vast, like a current of light passing from one soul to another. Its eyes brightened for a moment, and in that instant, Elias saw something impossible, stars reflected in the depths of its gaze, endless and ancient. Then the creature's body shimmered, dissolving into fragments of light that lifted into the air and vanished into the rain. Silence fell. Only the faint hum remained, resonating in his bones. Where the alien had lain, the concrete was scorched with a mark, a circular symbol of intertwined lines, pulsing faintly like a living heartbeat. Elias stared at it, chest heaving. The rain fell harder, drumming on the fused ground, washing away the blood but not the mark. He reached out, fingertips trembling, and felt it thrum beneath his skin as though answering him. Somewhere high above the clouds, satellites flickered. Signals whispered across frequencies no human had ever heard. And deep within Elias's chest, where the warmth of the alien's touch still lingered, something began to awaken. The days that followed blurred together in a strange, sleepless rhythm. The rain didn't stop. It seemed to cling to the city like static, hissing against the metal rooftops, seeping into the cracks of Elias's thoughts. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the light again, the alien's eyes, the shape of that symbol burning against the street, the way it had pulsed under his fingertips. He'd gone back the next day, hoping it had all been some fever dream, but the crater was still there. The air around it buzzed faintly, and the mark still shimmered, now faint as breath but alive. He could feel it, even when he walked away. Like it had marked him in return. At night, he dreamed. The dreams came with a strange rhythm, a pulse that matched the one in his wrist. He saw worlds floating like lanterns in the dark, their oceans lit from within. He saw creatures made of crystal and light, great ships gliding through storms of blue fire. And always, a voice whispered through the visions, calm and distant, as though calling his name from behind glass. He woke each time with sweat chilling his spine, heart pounding, the echo of that alien voice still in his ears. The city was restless. Rumors spread fast in places where people had nothing but gossip and hunger to trade. Some said a military ship had crashed near the industrial quarter. Others claimed it was a secret government weapon. The scavengers who'd escaped him that night vanished, no one had seen them since. And now, unmarked drones swept through the lower districts, silent and searching. They weren't police models, too sleek, too quiet. Their lenses glowed faint blue, scanning every shadow, their hum low and predatory. Elias learned to move differently. He avoided open streets, stayed below the data grid where facial recognition failed. But something was following him, not just drones. He could feel it, a pressure behind his thoughts, a presence brushing the edges of his mind like a signal searching for connection. When he looked into mirrors, sometimes the reflection shimmered, colors bleeding across his face for a split second before the world snapped back into shape. He tried to tell himself he was just sick. Exposure, hunger, exhaustion, his body was giving in. But deep down, he knew better. The night he touched that mark, something inside him had changed. It was near midnight when he returned to his shelter beneath the metro tracks. The tunnels were mostly abandoned now, filled with graffiti and the smell of rust. His small corner, a pile of cloth, a cracked thermos, a solar lamp half-charged from a stolen wire, felt more fragile than ever. As he sat, a flicker of light caught his eye. The mark. It was glowing again, faintly, beneath the torn fabric of his sleeve. He pushed the sleeve up. There it was, burned into his skin, not as a wound but as something living, almost shifting when he looked too long. "What the hell did you do to me?" he whispered, voice barely audible over the distant hum of the tunnels. The air grew heavy. Then, faintly, from somewhere that wasn't the air at all, a whisper answered, not in words, but in understanding. He felt it, rather than heard it, alive. He froze. The light pulsed once, in rhythm with his heartbeat. Then again. His vision wavered. Suddenly, the walls around him dissolved into darkness, replaced by endless stars stretching in every direction. He wasn't standing, wasn't moving, but he felt the sensation of motion, falling upward. A figure appeared before him, distant, blurred by brilliance. The same alien, perhaps. Its features softened by light, but those eyes were unmistakable, the same calm storm he had seen in that crater. The figure raised its hand, and Elias saw entire systems flare into being, rings of light orbiting stars, connected by invisible threads of energy. He felt knowledge move through him in fragments, words in languages older than human memory, numbers and patterns that danced like fireflies. Then the voice came, clearer now. "We are bound." Elias staggered, clutching his chest. The stars vanished. The tunnel returned. The light beneath his skin dimmed to nothing, leaving behind the taste of metal on his tongue. He gasped for air, the echo of that word vibrating in his bones. Bound. He spent the next day in hiding, trying to ignore it. But the world wouldn't let him. The city's networks began to flicker again, hollow ads stuttering, transmissions failing across districts. People blamed the weather, solar flares, sabotage. But Elias noticed the timing. Each surge happened when his pulse quickened, when the mark on his arm warmed. It was as if the city's systems were reacting to him. By the third night, he could no longer deny it. He climbed to the surface through a maintenance shaft, emerging near the old harbor where rusted cargo mechs lay half-submerged in black water. The sky glowed with artificial auroras, energy ripples from orbiting satellites. He stared at them, half expecting one to fall, like that first ship. The reflection of the lights trembled on the water's surface. Behind him, a faint mechanical hum rose. He turned sharply. A drone hovered there, sleek and silent, its glassy surface refracting blue light. It scanned him once, projecting a lattice of symbols over his body. The mark on his arm flared in answer, and for a moment, the drone hesitated, as if uncertain. Then it released a high-pitched tone and fled upward into the mist. Elias's heart pounded. That wasn't ordinary surveillance tech. That was something else, something aware. He stared after it, the sound of its retreat fading into the distance. Then, faintly, from above the clouds, a shape moved, enormous, barely visible against the storm. He didn't know if it was a ship or just his imagination, but one thing was certain, whatever he had saved that night was not gone. It was watching. And the mark beneath his skin pulsed once more, softer this time, almost reassuring. Like a heartbeat answering his own. The storm came without warning. A low tremor first, then a surge of light that split the sky into 1,000 jagged veins. Elias stood at the harbor's edge, watching the clouds twist into unnatural spirals, threads of electric blue winding inward toward a single, growing brilliance. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his legs refused. The mark on his arm had begun to burn, not painfully, but with a sensation deeper than the flesh, as if his blood itself had turned to light. The air thickened, bending sound and sight. Wind tore across the ruins, whipping debris into whirling columns. From above the storm, something vast emerged, first a shimmer, then a silhouette too perfect to be human-made. It descended slowly, effortlessly, a structure of shifting geometry that seemed to fold and unfold as it moved. Every surface glowed faintly, reflecting the lightning yet untouched by it. It wasn't like the wreck he had seen before, this was alive, purposeful, immense. The ship hovered above the harbor, its shadow blotting out the skyline. The rain stilled, as though afraid to fall. Then a beam of soft light extended downward, illuminating the cracked pier. Elias shielded his eyes, heart hammering. Within the column, shapes formed, lines resolving into a tall, slender figure that stepped onto the ground as gently as if the world itself were fragile glass. It was him. The alien from the crater. But this time, the being was transformed. The faint glow that had once flickered across its skin now burned like liquid starlight. Its form shimmered with layered patterns, armor woven from translucent strands of energy that shifted in color with each heartbeat. Around its head, faint halos of static light spiraled outward. It moved with a grace that made gravity feel optional. Elias stumbled backward, overwhelmed by the surreal beauty of it. The being raised a hand, and the mark on Elias's arm flared in response. The connection between them tightened, not through words but through something older, an understanding that bypassed language. Then, the alien spoke. The voice wasn't heard through the air. It resonated directly in his mind, clear and layered, like several tones speaking at once. Elias Kane. You preserved life where none was owed. You acted without the shadow of gain. Such actions echo through the weave. Elias swallowed hard, his throat dry. You can speak English now. A faint glimmer crossed the alien's features, amusement, maybe. Language is adjustment. You reached toward comprehension first. The rest follows. The sky behind them rippled as smaller vessels emerged, sleek, silver, and silent, positioning themselves around the mothership like guardian stars. Their lights painted the ruined harbor in hues of blue and violet. The city above erupted in noise, sirens, alarms, drones scrambling to investigate. Humans, watching from towers and rooftops, would see what Elias saw now, proof that Earth was no longer alone. The alien took another step closer. We are the Seraph Dominion. Our reach extends beyond sight, across the currents of time and thought. Your courage was witnessed, your defiance recorded. You saved one of our kind. You are now bound by honor. Elias shook his head slowly. Bound? I didn't do it I don't even know what you are. And yet you acted, the alien replied. In your world, you are forgotten. In ours, you are eternal. The word struck him harder than he expected. Forgotten. The city that walked past him daily, the system that erased men like him, suddenly it all seemed impossibly small compared to the being standing before him. The alien extended its hand, palm open. Light rippled across its skin, forming faint sigils. Come with me. You are owed truth. Elias hesitated, staring at that hand. The logical part of his mind screamed that this was madness, that stepping into that light meant surrendering everything human. But another part of him, the same instinct that had driven him into that alley weeks ago, whispered that this was meant to happen. He took a step forward, then another, until the light swallowed him whole. Weight vanished. His body dissolved into vibration, awareness stretched like a filament through endless space. For a breathless moment, he glimpsed the true scale of the ship, vast beyond imagination, a lattice of energy and living metal. Stars wheeled beneath transparent floors. Rivers of data light flowed through the walls, alive with motion. He could feel them, like thoughts brushing his consciousness. Then his feet touched ground again. The interior was impossible to describe, a place that seemed half dream, half architecture. Columns of translucent crystal rose around him, humming faintly with the rhythm of his heartbeat. The air shimmered with scentless mist. Everywhere he looked, symbols flickered, rearranging themselves in fluid patterns that his mind almost understood. The alien stood before him once more, though here its light was gentler. You stand within the arc of the seraph. Few of your kind will ever behold this place. Elias turned slowly, all warring with disbelief. Why me? I'm nobody. I'm not a soldier anymore, not a scientist, not even. You are human, the alien interrupted softly. And yet, when faced with fear, you chose empathy. Empathy is rare in any galaxy. It is the first and last mark of sentience. A sphere of light drifted near them, pulsing faintly. The alien touched it, and a projection bloomed, a vision of Elias kneeling in the rain, shielding the wounded being, his face lit by lightning. The image hung there, suspended in perfect clarity. This moment has been sent through the weave. It is known across worlds. The Dominion remembers. Elias stared at the image, throat tightening. The man in it looked like someone else, a version of himself he barely recognized. You're telling me, the whole galaxy saw me beat a few scavengers with a pipe? The alien tilted its head. They saw compassion. The form matters less than the meaning. Outside the ship, the city's alarms grew louder. Military crafts were approaching, their distant engines trembling through the clouds. The alien turned its gaze toward the horizon. They come in fear. As they always do. What will you do? Elias asked quietly. What we must. But not without choice. The alien looked at him once more. You are the bridge now, Elias Kane. Between your kind and mine. Between what is and what could be. Before he could respond, the ship trembled slightly, an energy surge rippling through its structure. The alien raised a hand, and the walls dissolved into transparency. Elias saw the human fighter jet slicing through the storm, weapons charged. For the first time in his life, he wasn't the one being ignored. The entire planet was looking up, and at him. He had saved a stranger once. Now, somehow, that act was about to change everything. Elias stepped cautiously across the smooth, translucent floor, the strange architecture beneath his feet pulsing faintly with each step, as if the building itself was alive, aware of him. The air smelled faintly of ozone and warmth, carrying a resonance that made his bones hum. Around him, columns of crystalline light stretched upward, twisting into spirals that defied logic, dissolving into patterns that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Every corner of the room shimmered with movement, though nothing walked or flew, energy alone danced here, alive, intelligent, observing him. The alien, KLTHYR, moved beside him, an impossibly tall figure glowing with shifting hues of silver and violet. The patterns on its skin rearranged constantly, flowing like liquid thought. The art chooses what to reveal, KLTHYR said, voice echoing in Elias's mind, soft but commanding. It responds to intent. You must be honest within yourself for it to guide you. Elias swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the statement. He had spent so long hiding from the world, pretending not to care, pretending he didn't want, didn't hope. Yet here, in this place beyond time and space, he felt every hidden desire, every scar, every fear laid bare. His gaze fell to a series of floating spheres that drifted lazily in the center of the room. Inside each, tiny stars, planets, and fragments of civilizations twinkled, miniature galaxies humming in impossible harmony. These are, he began, but KLTHYR interrupted. The histories. Every civilization we have observed. Every act of courage, cruelty, love, and betrayal. The weave holds them all. And now, through you, your act is recorded. The alien paused, tilting its head. You are no longer merely human. You are witness, guardian, and, should you choose, participant in a broader destiny. Elias felt dizziness, vertigo, as if the room spun and folded upon itself. Why me? He whispered, voice trembling. I didn't do anything special. I saved you because. I don't know. I couldn't just let you die. KLTHYR's form seemed to soften, the light around its chest swirling with a warmth that resonated with Elias's heartbeat. That is exactly why. Many have the tools, the weapons, the opportunity. Few act without expectation. That selflessness ripples outward, unnoticed, until it meets an eye that recognizes it. You acted in the purest form of choice, and we observed. Now, you are bound to the weave by honor, and the weave will respond. Before Elias could ask what that meant, the room shifted. The crystalline walls became transparent, revealing a vast expanse beyond the ark, a network of stars and ships stretching into the darkness. Entire fleets, elegant and alien, hovered in formation, energy rippling along their hulls like veins. Some vessels were enormous, their surfaces shimmering with living patterns, others were smaller, sleek, darting through the void like swarms of metallic fish. The sight was breathtaking. They belong to your brotherhood now, HFY said. They are at your command, should you wish it. Elias's heart pounded. Command? What do you mean? These are ships, people. I can't. HFY extended a hand, and a holographic interface appeared, projected from the alien's fingers. The symbols floated in the air, twisting into shapes that Elias somehow understood, intuitive rather than learned. He saw names, ranks, functions, fleets of ships that responded to thought rather than touch. Servants of light, not men or machines, waited in silent readiness. The Dominion grants you this as a symbol of gratitude and unity, HFY explained. We offer resources, protection, and knowledge. Your world is in need, and your choice now defines not only your fate, but theirs. Elias ran a hand through his hair, overwhelmed. He could feel the weight of history pressing down on him, the enormity of the cosmos, the thousands of eyes watching through light years. I'm just one man, he said, voice low, shaking. I don't know if I deserve this. I barely survived before. HFY knelt slightly, its massive form radiating calm. Survival is not measure of worth. Courage is. Compassion is. You acted where others faltered. That is why you were chosen. The light in the ark pulsed, and a vision appeared before him, cities rebuilt, populations protected, fleets defending worlds that might otherwise be lost. Images of countless lives, every one touched by decisions that would flow from his own. Elias felt the enormity of the choice compress his chest. This was not wealth for indulgence, it was responsibility. Power, yes, but power to shape outcomes for beings far beyond his comprehension. Outside the ark, signals reached Earth. Communications flickered, satellites pulsed with alien frequencies. Drones halted mid-flight, systems overloaded. Humans far below watched the skies with awe, terror, and confusion. The world was beginning to understand that Elias Kane was no longer invisible, no longer a shadow beneath the city's neon lights. HFY's voice softened, almost gently, you are offered this not to dominate, but to protect, to guide, to be the bridge between your kind and ours. You may decline. But once accepted, there is no turning back. Elias exhaled slowly, chest tight. He looked down at the mark on his arm, now glowing with a steady, calm rhythm. It felt like a pulse, a heartbeat of the cosmos itself, binding him to the alien, to the ark, to a future he could not yet comprehend. I accept, he said finally, voice trembling but resolute. The words echoed through the ark, through the fleets, through the silent expanse of stars beyond. The ships shifted as if responding to the declaration, the energy servants aligning in patterns that radiated order and purpose. HFY inclined its head, satisfaction radiating in the flow of light across its form. Then you are ours, and we are yours. Let the bonds of brotherhood endure. Let the story begin. And in that instant, Elias Kane, the homeless man who had once walked forgotten streets beneath neon shadows, became the pivot upon which new worlds would turn, his courage inscribed in the weave, eternal and unyielding. The sky above the city churned with restless clouds, tinged with the unnatural glow of alien energy. From the ark hovering just beyond the stratosphere, Elias watched the human fleets mobilize below. Ships that had once seemed infinite in their authority now looked fragile, metallic insects swarming against the vastness of the cosmos. HFY stood beside him, calm and radiant, observing the responses of Earth's military with a patience that belied the tension in the air. "They do not understand," HFY said, voice resonating in Elias's mind. "They see power, not purpose. Fear drives their actions, and fear is the easiest path to destruction." Elias clenched his fists, the mark on his arm pulsing faster. "They're coming for me," he said, his tone low, almost bitter. "For whatever this is. They want control. They want to own you, your ships, me." HFY's light shimmered in acknowledgement. "Yes. They will test you, as they test all who stand between ignorance and understanding. But your role is not to dominate. It is to guide, to mediate." Below, the first wave of fighter jets cut through the storm, their engines screaming as they approached. The Arkansas missiles streaked toward the enormous vessel, but they disintegrated in midair, vaporized by a protective field of energy that pulsed outward like a heartbeat. The fleet faltered, chaos rippling through the command channels. Humans shouted orders, confused by systems that no one could override. Elias's stomach churned at the sight, the weight of responsibility pressing against his chest. He had power now, fleet command, alien technology, armies of light, but the burden of wielding it responsibly felt heavier than any fear he had known on the streets. He had defended the alien once with nothing but a rusted pipe, now he was defending entire civilizations. HFY moved closer, its form shimmering with purpose. "You will speak for us," it said. "You will show them that fear is not the measure of strength. Your people must understand our intentions before we take action. Listen, and they may yet choose peace." Elias stepped forward, his voice amplified by the ark's energy, carrying across the city below. "This is not an invasion," he said, each word deliberate. "You see power in what you do not understand. These beings, HFYR and the Seraph Dominion, are not here to conquer. They are here because one act of courage was seen, and now a bond exists that cannot be broken." The humans hesitated, the words echoing through the command frequencies. Satellites recorded the exchange, civilians looked skyward, and yet the fear remained, tangled with the awe of what hovered above them. Missiles hung frozen in midair, electronic warfare systems faltered, and the soldiers below felt uncertainty clawing at their certainty. One admiral, older and steadier than the rest, finally responded, speaking through comms that vibrated with static. "How can we trust something we cannot even comprehend?" Elias swallowed, heart racing. "You trust what protects you, what shows intent beyond threat. That is what I ask of you now. Look at the fleet. Look at the Arkansas. See the being who calls me brother. Decide if fear or understanding will shape your future." HFY's presence flared as the alien energy pulsed outward, not as a weapon, but as a message, a wave of resonance that carried the same sensation Elias had felt the night of the alley. Peace, possibility, and the weight of unbroken trust. The human fleet wavered, systems flickering, hesitation spreading through the ranks. Amid this, Elias felt a tug at his consciousness, a ripple from the weave itself. The actions of his decision spread outward, weaving through the threads of countless civilizations, distant watchers of the cosmos taking note. He realized that his choice had consequences far beyond the planet he had walked, beyond the streets that had once ignored him. The ripple reached the very edges of the Seraph Dominion, threads of light responding to his courage. A sudden burst of light signaled a small group of humans breaking formation, lowering weapons and initiating open comms. Hesitation turned into dialogue, questions into cautious negotiation. Elias guided them, explaining the purpose of the fleet, the nature of HFY's civilization, the meaning of honor and empathy that had prompted all this. Slowly, the tension began to dissolve. HFY's voice entered his mind once more. "You are the bridge, Elias. Not all will understand immediately. Some will resist. But you carry the measure of hope. Hours passed, though it felt like seconds. By the time the storm began to abate, a fragile accord was forming. Humans hesitated less, curiosity overcoming terror. They asked questions about the ships, about the aliens' intentions, about Elias himself. And with each answer, the weight on his shoulders felt lighter, as if the universe itself recognized his determination. When the last of the human fleets withdrew to stand guard rather than attack, Elias looked at KLTHYR, the alien light reflecting in his eyes. "It's not over," he said. "They'll try again. Some of them won't accept this." The alien inclined its head, a cascade of shimmering light rippling across its form. "No. But now, you have shown that courage and understanding can guide even the fearful. Your humanity is our greatest ally." Elias exhaled, the first time in days he felt a measure of relief. He glanced down at the mark on his arm, its pulse steady and warm, as though affirming his role. For the first time, he understood the scope of what had begun. He had been a man invisible to the world. Now, he was the axis upon which the fragile balance between civilizations might rest. And though the weight of the responsibility pressed upon him like gravity itself, Elias Kane felt, for the first time in his life, the surge of power that came not from strength or weaponry, but from the simple, unyielding act of doing what was right. The first light of dawn spilled over the city, though it seemed artificial, filtered through the shimmering aurora that lingered above from the Arkansas. Elias stood at the edge of the observation deck. The city sprawled beneath him, a tangle of streets, towers, and flickering hollow ads, looking both impossibly small and impossibly fragile. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflective, mirroring the sky above where the Seraph fleet hovered silently, still immense, still impossible to ignore. KLTHYR stood beside him, a pillar of living light, calm and measured, as if the world itself had reduced to this single moment. "Elias," the alien said softly in his mind, "what you have done has been seen across systems. The Weave recognizes your choice, and it resonates in ways humans cannot yet fully grasp. The city below, the fleets, even your own kind, they have witnessed a path beyond fear. Yet there remains unrest. Balance is delicate, and trust must be nurtured." Elias's gaze drifted downward, where humans were emerging from shelters and towers alike, craning necks skyward. Children pointed, adults whispered, soldiers and civilians alike frozen in awe. He had seen the hesitation in their eyes, the moment where doubt clashed with hope. He could feel it, like a tide pulling at his chest, that fragile boundary between chaos and understanding. "Then we have to give them a chance," he said aloud, his voice carrying across the arc, amplified but calm. "We can't force them. We can only show them what's possible." KLTHYR inclined its head, a ripple of violet and silver flowing across its form. "And so it shall be. The final test is not in battle, but in choice. You have proven courage. Now you must guide humanity toward wisdom." He turned toward the holographic map that floated before him, the city, the fleets, the orbital satellites, and beyond them, the distant pulse of stars where the Seraph Dominion watched. Elias extended his hand, and the interface responded, energy bending to his will. He directed the Seraph ships in precise, non-threatening formations, demonstrating defensive patterns rather than aggression. Each vessel's lights pulsed in perfect rhythm with his own heartbeat, an unspoken language that could be understood even by those who could not comprehend the technology. On the streets below, comms channels buzzed with confused chatter. Military leaders debated, civilians murmured, drones hovered in waiting. Elias's presence, his voice, his calm authority began to cut through the fear. "They are not your enemies," he said again, projecting directly into open channels. "They arrived because one act of mercy was witnessed, and now a bond exists that is larger than you, larger than me. It is a bond of understanding, not conquest. Decide now, will you respond with violence, or with reason?" The first signs of acceptance came slowly. A small contingent of humans lowered their weapons, signaling to those around them. The ripple spread. Others followed, and within hours the tense standoff softened into cautious dialogue. Elias acted as mediator, explaining the nature of the serif, the meaning of the weave, and the responsibility he had inherited not as a master, but as a bridge. Questions were asked, answers given. Fear did not vanish, but curiosity and understanding began to flourish. HFY spoke then, the tone both gentle and resonant. Observe, Elias. Even in hesitation, understanding grows when guided by patience and clarity. Your humanity shapes this outcome more than any fleet or weapon ever could. Elias nodded, the pulse in his arm steady and warm, the mark on his skin a reminder of the night that had begun it all. He remembered the alley, the rain, the moment he had risked everything for a stranger. That choice had carried him here, through impossible vistas of light and time, to a position where his actions could ripple across worlds. The thought both humbled and empowered him. Over the following days, the Serif Dominion worked with humans to stabilize communications, repair the damaged city sectors, and share knowledge that was safe for their comprehension. The alien servants of light assisted without intrusion, restoring infrastructure and guiding technology, leaving behind wonders that humans could touch and understand, but never fully master. Elias remained the constant intermediary, a symbol of trust between species. When the Ark finally prepared to depart, hovering above the city like a jewel suspended in the sky, HFY approached Elias. "You have done well, brother," the alien said, voice carrying the weight of centuries and stars. "The bond endures. This is your legacy, to show that courage, empathy, and honor can shape worlds." Elias reached out, touching the alien's shimmering arm. A surge of light passed between them, not violent, but affirming, as though every thread of the weave acknowledged his role. I understand now," he murmured. "It wasn't about the ships or the power. It was about what we do when no one is watching. That's what changes everything." HFY inclined its head, and then, slowly, began to dissolve into strands of light that lifted upward, merging with the Arkansas. The ship rose, engines humming in silent grace, and then it was gone, leaving only a faint aurora behind, shimmering across the horizon. Below, the city breathed again, humans emerging into a world subtly altered, their fears tempered by the realization that courage and empathy could shape futures beyond imagination. Elias stood alone on the observation deck, looking out at the streets he had once wandered unseen. The rain had left puddles that reflected the morning light and, faintly, a symbol that glimmered in the water, a reminder that bonds forged in selfless acts endure. The mark on his arm had faded slightly but remained, a constant heartbeat tying him to a universe that now recognized him, not as a vagrant, but as a bridge between worlds. For the first time in decades, he felt the weight of being seen, of being remembered. Not for wealth, not for status, but for a simple act of courage that had transformed not only his life, but the lives of countless others. The city hummed softly beneath him. The winds carried no threat, only the quiet promise of possibility. And somewhere in the vastness above, the Serif Dominion watched, patient and eternal, knowing that one human had taught them something as profound as they had taught him. Elias Kane, once homeless and unseen, finally understood the power of choice, and the universe seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next story he would inspire.